I'm Charlie Wladyka. I was was in the Navy. I was stationed on Intrepid. Came out of boot camp and reported to the ship in the infamous Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay. They flew me down to Guantanamo Bay on December 9th. I think it was December 9th, 1965. We made 3 tours of Vietnam. And when I came back, I finished up in Philadelphia. There was always a draft on when I grew up, so everybody was going to go into service. The question is, did you go to college first or you didn't? I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm still not quite sure of that. So I enlisted out of high school. Boot camp is all about learning discipline and regimentation, etc. I was fortunate. I went through Great Lakes, but where the men that went in 6 months prior to me did 13 weeks, we only did 6 weeks. Vietnam was already starting to heat up. I remember asking a recruiter, we're gonna have a lot of physical fitness? He said, well, let me say this, they're gonna get you in good enough shape to make it from one end of the ship to the other. Well, actually, when I came on board, I wound up in the engineering department. And when my first deployment, they put me in A Division. Actually, I was going to, could have went anywhere, and I had, as I said, I had a good head on my shoulders, and I had good scores, like you would call them an IQ. And it was like 4 or 5 different places to work. They ran the elevators, hydraulics, air conditioning, refrigeration, this, that. Anyway, the first deployment, I wound up supplying high pressure air. High pressure air returns the catapult sled, returns the arresting gear, and then there's other things for low pressure air systems. We maintain those. And we went to Vietnam. I came back and the guys are saying, well, the ship's going to Vietnam as soon as we finish up with some more training. And I said, oh, that's the place I've been reading about in the paper. Well, the first thing was when I first came aboard the Intrepid, there was no air conditioning in the berthing spaces. They put that on the way to Vietnam, halfway over there. So you can imagine Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, about 100 degrees outside, being up all night. They flew us down there, and when I arrived, they gave me a rack, and it must have been 100 degrees in a compartment with 60 guys in there. It was awful, and it was kind of rough work. It was down in the auxiliary spaces, basically on either side of the engine rooms. It was hot and noisy and nasty, and we would stay in 12-hour watches there, 12 hours on, 12 hours off. So we went over in '66. I was like a non-rated guy, and at first, the carriers would, the newer ships, when they first went over there, they flew in a position called Dixie Station, which was off South Vietnam. And the pilots, it was all about the pilots, by the way, and maintaining the pilots and to get the planes in the air to help the people on the ground. Now we went to bomb in North Vietnam under what they call Rolling Thunder. That program was for about 3 years it ran. Typical deployment was 8 months, a month over, a month to get back, 6 months in theater, 4 30 to 35-day line periods, and then transit to a port for maybe a week's R&R and then back. So if we were going to Japan, it takes 5 days to get there, do 10 days in Japan, 5 days to get back. The biggest fear was every year there was a major fire on a carrier. You got there were 3 or 4 of them on line, and you got 30, 40, 50 planes, fully fueled, fully armed, and with liquid oxygen on board to breathe, and you turn into the wind. And you got men who've been working 18 hours a day for 30 days now, and there's a lot of chance for error. And every year there was a major fire. As soon as that fire alarm went off, and it'd say fire, fire, fire on the flight deck, that was my biggest fear anyway. My second biggest fear was running out of money before Liberty was over, going broke before we pulled back to sea. You form relationships because, we weren't under fire, but we were under the gun, so to speak, in the sense of working these long hours and experiencing things. And again, young boys away from home, that's all they are, boys. The average age is 19 or 20 years old on the ship. A dozen guys I'm in contact with 40 years later, And this former crew members outfit that we have on here facilitates that. We meet people sometimes you serve with you haven't seen, or you meet people that you were on board with you just didn't know, but you shared the same experience, went through similar emotions and whatnot. So yeah, it's a common thread. Yeah, but it's all about being able to keep what you got and to be able to be free like that.